Newcastle United are third in the Premier League. Let that sink in, and they absolutely deserve to be there. And why I mean let that sink in is they didn't basically sign anyone in the summer, unless you're going to count Lloyd Kelly and ECILA, but they didn't sign anyone in these last three transfer windows. It's actually gone into the starting 11. They didn't have the best season last year, but it was just full of injuries, and Tonali's suspension did not help. And this season, I don't think anyone predicted Newcastle top three. They could finish second with Arsenal just prioritising the Champions League now. They seriously could finish second in the league. And I don't think anybody predicted that, even the most ambitious Newcastle fans, because they were disappointed with their transfer window. I said I think Newcastle would finish fifth this season, potentially getting in the Champions League that way. I thought that they were going to have a better season than a lot of people. But I watched a lot of Premier League predictions where Newcastle were like 8th, 9th. And I was like, no, Newcastle for me will push the top four. I don't think if you get in the top four, but I was like, they will be in that 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, maybe 3rd, but probably 6th, 5th, 4th range. 1st, 2nd, 3rd for me was going to be City, Liverpool, Arsenal. Nailed on. City have fallen off. They have been incredible. This Newcastle side, honestly, the quality is a joke in terms of how they go forward and attack so ruthlessly. Is an absolute joke, because Crystal Palace were a form team. I had an option of Eddie Howe or Glasner for assistant manager, and I thought, well, Glasner will get the +5s if he wins, because this is FPL talk, because, you know, people above him in the league. So I went with Glasner. Why did I go with Glasner? I should have gone with Eddie Howe on FPL. Should have gone. I know Eddie Howe wasn't actually managing, but if you know FPL, you know. I lost out on big points because I thought Palace would make it a tough game. They are the form team. I brought a lot of Palace players in to my FPL, and they were smashed, destroyed, embarrassed by Newcastle United from minute 1 to minute 90. But that first half, Newcastle were ruthless. And how many times this season have Newcastle been ruthless in the first half? You talk about the Leicester City game, even the Nottingham Forest game when they almost got back into it. That first half, you were ruthless. Man United game, it was more the second half. But today, ruthless. Look at these wins. The Carabao Cup win has almost given Newcastle this buzz. Beat Liverpool in the Carabao Cup, beat Brentford, batter Leicester, batter Man United, batter Crystal Palace, and Villa's a huge game because Villa are in some good form. Villa are one of the other form teams in the league, and I think you beat Villa, that is Champions League nailed on. Arguably, I think you've got Champions League nailed on now. You are a good 4 points clear of Chelsea, who haven't been particularly good, and top 5 will get you Champions League, and Chelsea have not been convincing, in my opinion, lately. You're 5 points clear of Chelsea, so I think you've got Champions League nailed on. Maybe Villa can make a late push, but yeah, Forest are dropping off. City, I'm not convinced. So let's talk about Newcastle, because I'm going to give you my honest opinion. I think Newcastle is Champions League level. They look like a Champions League team today, battering Crystal Palace. They were just electric in that first half. I'm talking 12 goals scored, 1 goal conceded in the last 3 games. Form. You know, Crystal Palace are the form team. Leicester are crap, Man United are crap, let's be honest about it. But they've been unreal lately. Liverpool, the win. Brentford's a difficult game. You know, Crystal Palace came in as a form side and they just got battered. And I think with performances like this, they look like they're going to qualify for the UCL, but they look like a UCL side. They beat Arsenal comfortably over 2 legs in the Carabao. Arsenal, who are much better than Real Madrid. They beat PSG at St James's Park last season. They give City difficult games. They love to batter United. You know, Liverpool they beat. Like, Newcastle on their day can beat the big teams. The one thing that's going to cost Newcastle, which cost them last season in Champions League, is depth. It is massively depth. That's the bonus you have, because you're then going to go back to having more games a season. You're going to have 8 more games a season in the group stage, potentially another 2, 4, 6, 8 if you go through to the next round. That's when I look at Newcastle and say you need another centre-back. I think you're going to need another full-back for depth, another midfielder for depth. You know, you look at your starting 11, but you're going to need another attacker to back up Isak. Wilson isn't good enough. You get maybe someone that can give Murphy more competition on the right wing, but Murphy's been unreal this season. I think it's more than a purple patch. I think he's proven he's a good player. You're going to need another midfielder there for depth, another centre-back that's going to come in, long-term Schar replacement, potentially a goalkeeper, potentially another full-back for depth. But Newcastle are definitely UCL level. And we've got to talk about Jacob Murphy, because I think he's having one of the most underrated seasons in the league. When I think underrated this season, I'm thinking of the Jacob Murphys, I'm thinking of the Konzas, I'm thinking of the Tielemans, I'm thinking of the Tonalis, just to name a few players that I think don't get the credit because they're not at a big 6 club. You know, if an Arsenal player starts before going, way hype, Liverpool player starts before. Actually, McAllister's been pretty underrated this season. I think, but like if you look at Newcastle, you look at Villa and you look at Forest, a lot of their top performers got underrated. Like Elliot Anderson, formerly of Newcastle, has been incredible this season. Milinkovic, Murillo, for example. But Jacob Murphy is in the form of his life. 8 goals and 11 assists in the Premier League this season. top class delivery into the box. Not today because he didn't assist Isak today, but in the past, the amount of times he put in a good delivery and he'd assist Isak. Today, the ball into Schar was brilliant. Like, he can score goals, but he's the most selfless player. Murphy is the kind of winger that I think any squad in the Premier League would want, even Arsenal, even Liverpool, even Man City, because, Saka gets injured and Arsenal are limited on options. Whereas, Ranieri's good, but he's a kid. But like Jacob Murphy's that kind of guy that he works so hard, he presses relentlessly, he gets back, but he can provide goals, he can provide assists, but he's a selfless player. He's always putting the ball, looking to set up Isak, looking to set up teammates. He plays for his team. And I feel like that's what you want in a player. And he might become a squad player next season if you do sign an Mbeumo. But it's not a case of Mbeumo walking in. Harvey Barnes has put Gordon back on the bench. Murphy could definitely put whatever right wing signing you bring on the bench, because the form he's in right now, you can't drop him. He's giving England contenders, he's giving Premier League team of the season contenders. He's not going to get another Salah, but the left wing position is definitely up for grabs if you play him out of position, like they do. He's been unreal today. The goal was insane. I don't know if that was a cross or a shot, but I think that was a shot because he doesn't get that kind of power on his crosses. He looks to place. His crosses are quite accurate, so I think he was intentional with that. Unbelievable. Harvey Barnes, confidence. Harvey Barnes has always had output. He's always had output throughout his career. He's always been good in that. But there's sometimes questions about what he does before the output. Is his all-round game good enough? I think every game he's getting better and better because he's getting what's the word? Just getting in the flow. He's getting it in his legs. He's getting the minutes in his legs, and he's improving. And I think confidence is key. 11 Premier League starts this season, 7 goals, 2 assists, but 4 goals in his last 3 games alone, 4 goals and 4 assists in his last 5 games. He's in ridiculous form. Should have brought him an FPL, brought an Eze. Annoyed about that. But the finish, I think he had a lot of time to take that goal, and he had to run with the ball. And you think the defenders got back and the defenders got that covered because he's going to cut in and do his Harvey Barnes finish. But no, we went on the outside and the finish was fantastic. His ability to trick the defender, be unpredictable and create separation and then produce a quality strike after having that much time to think, having to run with the ball was fantastic. This is what makes me jealous as a United side, is I watched Bruno Fernandes playing a really good ball. As a Man United fan, not Man United side, as a Man United fan, I'd watch Bruno Fernandes playing a really good ball. To fair, Garnacho scored a good goal versus you the other day, but to Højlund or Garnacho this season, and then it's like, and we just don't do anything with it. The kind of passes Harvey Barnes got today for his goals, the kind of passes that Man United players get a lot from Bruno, and they do nothing with it. But Harvey Barnes did so much with that, and Isak with his chance did so much with that. And as a Manchester United fan, because our attack stinks, if we're in the position that Isak's in with Højlund or Garnacho's in the position Harvey Barnes is in, we're not going to score that goal because we don't have the quality. I think the quality that Newcastle have in their attack is ridiculous, and it makes me jealous. The fact that Anthony Gordon isn't walking right back into your starting 11 just tells you how good Harvey Barnes has been. He deserves to keep his place. And Anthony Gordon is arguably, you could somewhat argue, the best, but he's definitely a top 3 best left wingers in the league. Son's dropped off. Rashford's doing well for Villa, but did drop off. Diaz is hit and miss. You could argue he's the best left winger in the league, and he can't get back in. That says a lot. But look at this. 11 starts, 7 goals, 2 assists, 17 Premier League games, 7 goals, 8 assists. This is like recently, the last couple of months. That is insane in the Premier League. The output, not just, it's not like they're just relying on Isak. They're not a one-man team. Arsenal are very reliant on Saka. Man United very reliant on Bruno Fernandes. Liverpool very reliant on Salah. What other players get decent stats for Liverpool? The versatility in Newcastle's attack and the amount of people that are contributing is incredible, And one thing I noticed, I think that Livramento and Barnes works really well in terms of the directness and the intensity and the energy they bring together. I think they complement each other very well with the runs, with the movements, with the direction, as I said. And I think Livramento's look better on the left. He's very good at his duelings. He's very good at his carrying the channels. But I felt that double teaming is really ruthless. And I think there's an attacking intent. There's this constant movement. And I think, why does it say Livramento was class today? Rinsed the low for the second goal and carried the ball with confidence. I don't know why. That's from my Man United notes. I've copy and pasted the wrong notes from the Man United game there. So ignore that bottom bit. But he did rinse the low in the Manchester United game. But, I think they've mixed up my notes with my Man United notes here. But it was the attacking intent was fantastic. Direction, the overlaps. Livramento can deliver it well, but the combination has looked incredibly good between those two players. I think it works well. They complement each other well. So let's talk about Eddie Howe. I know it was Tyndall today, but let's just talk about why Eddie Howe in general deserves respect. There was a point earlier in the season, I'm going to say October, November, where there were Newcastle fans online. I'm not saying it was all Newcastle fans, but there was some calling for Eddie Howe to be sacked. You are now third with a game in hand. Actually, I think that was your game in hand. No first team signings in the last 3 windows, losing players like Minter and Anderson, and injuries. Botman's been injured, Wilson's been injured, and he's managed to get the best out of every player. No manager is maximising their squad like Newcastle are right now, getting the best out of them, out of Murphy, out of Schar. Look at Dan Burn, the levels he stepped up. Murphy, the levels he stepped up. You know, he's got players that were there under Steve Bruce, and he is now getting them looking like Champions League players. You know, obviously Joe Linton's an example, Schar, Murphy. The way he's maximised the squad and the resources he's had is crazy. And I think if Newcastle have a good window, they could do something mad next season as long as they don't get injuries. You know, it's crazy. You look at the midfield, Tonali, Bruno, Joe Linton is one of the best midfields in the Premier League. It's incredibly underrated. The amount of ground Tonali was covering today, he was like, honestly, he just was running everywhere. Like, it was like the 75th minute and he made a big run and he wasn't tired. The 94th minute versus Man United, he made that run up the pitch and didn't look exhausted. But what Tonali does is he does this crazy amount of running to cover ground, gives Bruno Guimaraes the license to push higher, so you've got more creativity on the pitch with Bruno Guimaraes. But Tonali just wins the ball and can progress the ball and do everything. Joe Linton brings that physicality. Bruno and Tonali bring that technicality. And games are sometimes won and lost in midfield. And Newcastle, when they're controlling the midfield, they're dominating the midfield, they're helping out the defence because they're covering the defence with the good work of Tonali's movement, interceptions, ground coverage, but they're helping the attack because Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes are very good on the ball, progressing the ball and breaking the lines and giving the ball to attackers in good positions. And then when the attack get the ball at Newcastle, they are completely ruthless. They'll just run and run and run. And then they will just take their chances. And you've got this midfield that is doing its job and unleashing the ball to this potent attack that is so intense, that is so direct. Like, you look at Isak, you know, and I think what Newcastle have is the best high press in world football right now. They did it to Man United with one of the goals. They did it today. Joe Linton presses high. He wins back the ball. He plays it into Isak. A lot of players in Isak's position don't score that. Darwin Núñez doesn't score that. Rasmus Højlund probably doesn't score that. Erling Haaland, I don't know if Erling Haaland scores that, and he's one of the best strikers. But Isak put the ball in the back of the net like it was easy. He might have missed some easier chances, but his ball striking was crazy. And it's Newcastle's ability to win back the ball, be direct, play it forward quickly, dominate the midfield zones. And then when they give it to the attack, they are so ruthless. It's absolutely crazy. Last but not least, I just want to give credit to the defence. I thought the defence was excellent. I thought Fabian Schar was fantastic, not just the goal, but, you know, defensively commanding good. I think your defence has looked really good lately. You look at the Liverpool game, Livramento putting Salah on lockdown. And I think in terms of the UCL next season, you got to get that centre back. You got to get someone that's going to another attacking option, a fullback. I think if Trippier leaves, you know, but Longstaff probably go, Willett probably go. You know, you need that depth. But your squad is good as a core, but you need another top midfielder, a top centre back, a fullback for depth, and another attacker for depth there. I think you're going to keep Isak. I think you're going to keep Tonali. I think you're going to keep Bruno Guimaraes, Gordon. I mean, Bruno and Isak are the only players that have been linked to other clubs. I think with you in the Champions League, you 100% keep your top players, and that puts you in a position where you've got a bit of money to spend this summer. You're back in the Champions League. The money from that gives you more money at PSR. You haven't done anything really in the last 18 months. So you're going to be in a good position to spend. And this Newcastle side is already very good, but it could be seriously deadly next season. And I don't think enough people are talking about that. Thank you for watching. Bye.